Welcome to the MFR Coaches podcast, where we talk about how you can create a six-figure MFR practice. I'm your host, Heather Hommel. Not only have I been practicing MFR for 11 years, I'm also a life and business coach, especially for MFR therapists. My goal is for you to understand how to get fully booked, how to talk to your clients, and how to make sure they understand what's possible for them with MFR treatment. I'm here to help you stop under-earning, overworking, and burning out. I'll lend support so you can create the MFR practice you've always wanted. Learn how you can do it too, even if you live in a tiny town, and even if you're just starting out, and even if you've ran your practice for years. Let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the MFR Coaches podcast. I am doing an interview today with one of my coaching students, Kristin Kunzelman. Kristin is a certified massage therapist. She's the owner of Pacific Myofascial Release in Burlingame, California, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area. Kristin has been coaching with me. I think you did 2 rounds, right? We started in July and
correct.
And then you went right into the next round, right? The November round. Okay.
Yes.
So we know each other. She made me a spreadsheet of all of the things she learned during coaching. So I'm kind of impressed with myself, but I'm also impressed with her ability to make spreadsheets. So this is going to be a fun episode. Welcome to the episode, Kristin. Thanks so much for having the courage to come on here and talk to all of us. How are you doing?
Thanks, Heather. I am nervous, but excited to be here.
Yes, this is going to be great. Okay, why don't you tell everybody kind of your background? Like, what were you doing before you became an MFR therapist? I think your whole journey to become one is really interesting. So share that information with us.
Yeah, I have a different background than a lot of people that I've gotten to know through MFR. So I was in a completely different field. I was teaching music in the public schools. I was a middle school and high school band director and loved it. I wanted to be that since I was 16 and loved my students, loved conducting, loved music. But I was burned out. I was clinically burned out, diagnosed by a therapist, years before I stopped teaching, probably 6 or 7 years, and just wanted to keep going. So I knew I had to do something else, but I didn't know what that something else was. And I needed it to be really meaningful and help people. So that was kind of all going on. And then I had 3 neck injuries over 5 years. So the first one was in 2014. I was walking through a parking lot, got backed into by a car. So I was hit as a pedestrian, and neck injuries and whiplash, concussion. I kind of healed from that, doing PT and chiro and all that. And I was hit, they had me sub for PE, which is one of the joys of being a teacher, is that they make you work and teach other people's classes on your free time, which read not free time, but working all the time. And I was hit on the head with a basketball. A kid shot a 3-pointer and totally missed, and it hit me and I didn't see it coming. And it re-injured, whiplash, concussion. And I had never felt the same anyway since my first accident. And I was kind of fed up with, the cycle of trying all these things and nothing working. And so I looked around online and I found someone in San Francisco that had these amazing reviews. I was like, okay, I don't care what she does. I'm just going to go see her. And it turns out she was doing myofascial release, and I didn't care what MFR was. I just knew I was in pain all the time and not myself. And so she was amazing, helped me so much. And then 2019, I was rear-ended on the highway coming home one day, and same thing again. And, but instead, this time I walked straight into her office, the next day, and knew how to have her get me better. And so it was great. And in the pandemic, public school working was crazy. I was actually a nonprofit at that point doing music in the schools, still trying to find a way to not be burned out. And she moved away out of the state, and I was devastated. I was like, she's my person. It's like your hairdresser, whoever you got really close to. And I was so bummed. And then after a couple of weeks, I was like, okay, I just got to buckle down and find someone else. And then I was really shocked. I thought there were MFR therapists everywhere, and there really aren't. And even in our area, we're blessed to have several, but it's not that many, and they're not, right next door. And so I was really bummed. But then a few days later, I was like, wait, there's not that many MFR therapists. Like, maybe I could do what she did.
Yeah.
And so I would start researching in the afternoons, and I was like, how do you become an MFR therapist? And, there's a book online. I was like, oh, great. Someone wrote a book on how to become an MFR therapist, and I didn't know you had just published that book. So I thought it'd been out and everybody knew about this. So I was like, great, this is so handy. And then I was like, oh, she talked about this guy named John Barnes. Like, he's got a book too. I'll get his book and read. And so I kind of just...
Wait a minute. So you bought my book before you even knew who John Barnes was?
I mean, I knew she had mentioned him, but I didn't really know. Like, I went into this to be an MFR therapist.
Okay. That's amazing. It's not even hilarious. It's like, that's just amazing. I did not know that.
Well, that's it. Like, how to become an MFR therapist. So I was like, great.
I was like, how to have a myofascial release business. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay.
And so I bought both of your books and read them. And I was like, I can probably do this. I taught private lessons and essentially had a private lesson business on the side. And my parents were both self-employed. So I had that model growing up. And so and then I was like, well, okay, how do I do this? And so I found the seminar page on, the website, and I called Malvern, and I wish I had a recording of this call, because I was like, can I take seminars? And she's like, well, yeah. And she's like, well, do you have a license? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, what is it? I was like, teaching public school music. And I could just tell there was like this pause, and she's like,
I'm a band director.
She had to explain, like, oh, you need to get a license to touch. I was like, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
And so I did more research and decided, massage therapy is the fastest, most economical way to get, the license to do this. And there's a great school in San Francisco. I loved my school. So then I had discovered your podcast. So I'd go to massage school and go on walks, during the day. And I had this great life of not really working too much for a while while I was prepping everything. And so I'd listen to your podcast through the neighborhood, and it was awesome because I could hear other people's stories. There, I filed my LLC in January, but I didn't graduate massage school until April.
Okay. Is this in 2022?
Yes, 2022. So I decided to switch careers, kind of spring, summer of 2021, and then started that fall, and then filed in January, started my LLC. So I had this 4-month lag of like, I have a business, but I can't do my business. So I had, which is very frustrating and kind of luxurious all at the same time. And so I would listen to your podcasts all the time. And I was like, oh, online, like you had me sold. I was like, online scheduling, no brainer, do that, and all these things. And it was really funny day. I remember the house I was in front of, it was on your ideal client. And I was like, so on board. And you're like, well, who's your ideal client? I was like, everyone. And like, I think I even said it out loud because I was just on my walk. And then you're like, it's not everyone. I was like, no, there's so much to
you
think
got it wrong.
And so, but it was great. All these like game-changing things to just think about from the beginning was very cool. And then, your episodes on tell everyone you're an MFR therapist. I was like, awesome. I'll tell everyone I'm becoming an MFR therapist.
Yeah.
And so of course, like friends would let you work on them. And I was like, can I practice these new things I just learned at seminar? And so it was really fun. I graduated in April 15th and opened in May 2022. And it was great. I got to be really intentional about everything I set up. My second month, I made just under $7,000 being open.
And you even said like in May, you made $3,700.
It was pretty cool.
That's like a lot of money your first month open.
It kind of blew my mind. And the second month blew it more. And, I really credited a couple of things. It was, all these great tips to integrate from your podcast. I have a wonderful community and network of people that many of them came once, to support me in my new business, which was really wonderful. I don't even think, half of them really they were just there to support me, which was so cool.
Yeah, that's great. That's good enough reason.
Yeah, it was really fun. Then that had kind of run its course. And there was a week in early July that I had 3 appointments on the books, and I kind of freaked out, and I was like, oh shit, like, what am I going to do? Like, you can't have a sustainable business on 3 clients a week, at least for where I want to be.
Yeah.
And that was the week that I was like, maybe I should do coaching with Heather. I'll bet I'll learn a lot of things, and this will just really help me take off.
I think I remember, did we have a one-on-one call? Was I doing one-on-one calls, or was I doing like a question and answer that you popped on?
You were doing the group ones, but I couldn't get to them. I had stuff going on during all the ones you published. So I kind of asked you if we could just chat real quick.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I remember we chatted, right? And
we did. Yeah. But I had asked you, I was like, I have a couple questions.
You were like, I've taken all of your advice from the podcast. I've read your book. Like, what will I get out of coaching?
So I had 2 big questions. And so one of them was, you're going to make your money back, which I did not ask you. I was at the the Irving seminars, and other therapists were there, and they were wearing your shirts. So I was like, oh, I'm going to pick their brain. And so they kind of answered that like, yes, you're going to totally make your money back and totally do it. It's great. You're going to learn so much.
Mm-hmm.
But the one I asked you is, I didn't know if your coaching was just basically your podcasts in group format. I was like, well, I've already done all this and I don't want to spend the whole time learning about this again. And so you were very encouraging that it was not just that, and I would get a lot out of it.
Yeah. I'm like, the podcast is just my shower thoughts. I don't think I said that, but that's kind of true.
Yeah. So then I started coaching and it's been amazing.
I love it. Okay. So let's just answer that question. Like, what is the difference between the podcast and actually being coached?
What I got out of coaching, to kind of sum it all up, in the first round, I feel like I got introduced to all these concepts, and you haven't talked about all of them on the podcast. You've talked many of them, but you delve in more. And then we go through this process on the other end of the light bulb goes off and you're like, oh, this thing's going on. But then you start to see where it's showing up so many different places. And some places I feel successful, really integrating a new concept. And other places you get stuck. And then you bring that to you in coaching or in the Facebook group. And it's kind of this repeat cycle of learning something more and more, and things you didn't know were actually going on in your psyche or showing up in your psyche. And so that continual coaching of really integrating the concept is different in coaching. Another thing I just love is that everyone's at different levels and you get something from everybody. Everyone in both coaching groups was just so inspirational. And there's people that are more starting out. There's people who haven't even opened yet. There's people that have been doing it for 20 years. And I got the most, obviously, from people that were further along from me, but I got a lot from the ones that were just a little bit ahead of me. Not so much in time. They'd been doing it for 10 years and I was just starting, but in terms of the work they were doing, and I would pay attention to things that were issues for them, knowing that that's on the horizon for what I want to build, and one of them just played out. And I think it was September, we had a whole bunch of people that blew my mind, and they made, $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 months. And I was so excited. Like, I want to be that. I totally want to do that. And then the next month, a bunch of them freaked out because they made so much less because they'd sold so many in packages. And I was like, oh, note to self, you might have this amazing month and you might have a low month. Yeah. Okay, not a problem. Like, that could just be part of the cycle. And so it saved me a lot of the mental drama.
Yeah. Because some of those people that weren't expecting that, I say this all the time. I'm like, the money is never going to actually solve for any other thoughts you have about money, thoughts you have about your business, thoughts you have about your confidence level and your ability to create more clients, all of that stuff. People never realize that that's true until they have a $10,000 or even a $15,000 month. And then they have an $8,000 month and they're like, I suck. And it's like, you still made $8,000. Remember when it was hard to make 3,000? What's happening right now?
Yeah.
And then they spiral out and then maybe have 3 months in a row that are kind of crazy, depending.
Yeah. And I feel like if you capitalize on learning from your peers, there's less of the spiraling out. You have your new spiraling out in your own way of your own thing, but it saves you, spiraling out on everything across the board. The other one that's been really interesting is I was hearing so many people in this last session talk about cancellations. And in my mind, I was like, my clients don't cancel. They're awesome. They just show up and don't miss. And, occasionally someone will get sick. But now that my schedule's booking out, I think my next available appointment is March 23rd. And I don't know what today is, February 15th.
It's February 15th today, 2023.
So completely booked out. I think there's 5 appointments left in March. And so people are just scheduling so far out now. But now that that's been happening, now the cancellations are showing up. And I was like, oh, this is why, because they had to book so far and now things change. And so you kind of think you're immune to some things and you're like, oh no, I'm human. These things happen to me too.
Yeah. Which is
but
so
you have
good.
The insider tip on how to handle it. It's great.
Exactly. And you can plan for it, right? You probably have policies in place because you could see where other people didn't and then it affected them.
The policies was interesting. I think there's a gift. I'm clearly behind a lot of therapists that have been working in the field for a long time. They have such a knowledge base and experience base that I don't have and I'm gaining right now.
Yep.
But there's other random skills that are, so helpful for me in my business. And one of those policies, I was like, this is not hard. You just make a policy and then you just enforce it.
Yeah. And the sooner you do it, the less painful it is.
And it's no brainers. But then
Yeah.
I was like, well, you taught middle schoolers for 13 years. Like you have to have, it's no big deal. You're just, oh, you did X, then Y happens. Like there's just consequences,
Yep.
So for me, I'm always like, why is this such a problem? I don't know. This is not a problem for me. But then I'm like, I have no idea how long it will take this client to get better. I have no frame of reference for a certain condition or something.
Yeah. Which is fine though. Like it's not like being a newer therapist and like just not having the years of experience under your belt is not a problem. Mm-hmm. And I love how you haven't ever made that a problem. You're like, oh, I've been in business since May. In December, I'm going to have a $10,000 month.
Pretty wild.
Yeah.
It blew my mind.
That is so cool. And that is what happened to you. Like December 2022, you had $10,710 cash collected.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it happened about a week before the end of the month. So it was like this huge goal in my brain and I made it. And then I just got to enjoy the rest of the month. It was so cool.
And then what happened in January? Did you have a low month or like, what was it?
I had a lower month, but not by much. And part of the reason why is when I did my rate change, all of my current clients that had been with me for a while, they had until January 31st to use the same amount. So I had quite a few clients really capitalize on that at the end of the month and buy out a package or two or a couple sessions. And so that bumped up January's a bit, I think. And it was great.
Well, in January, you made almost 8,000.
I was not expecting that at all based on what I had watched other people go through. So it was pretty cool.
Well, it sounds like you had a really managed mind around it. Like it was very intentional that you made 10 grand and it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like, oh, I'm not sure how I did this. And I know how to recreate it. And I know that I have this in place and this in place. I have a rate increase. So then, whenever you increase your rates, like there's going to be some sort of information that you're going to learn from that. And you're going to be able to evaluate, like, do I need to sell more packages? Like, what is the reason for my rate increase? Is it so that I can sell more packages and help people for longer periods of time before they have to decide if it's working for them or not? Or is my goal to see less clients and have a higher rate? Like there's all kinds of reasons for doing it and it's going to affect the bottom line eventually. So you'll either continually have high months and then a low month, high month, and then a low month if you're selling packages, or you'll finally hit your stride and you'll know when to ask people to re-up their packages so that you're controlling your cash flow at all times, which is super fun. It's not just happening to you.
Yeah, it's very cool. The management with the clients is more that the ones that have been with me for a while had the luxury of the schedule just being open and it wasn't a big deal. They could just kind of book and, you kind of say it, but some of them hear it like it's in their best interest. And some of them I think are like, whatever. But then they can't get in for 3 or 4 weeks and they've been used to coming every week. And so that shift is going on right now of, we need to stay on top of this and book out a ways. And that's new for me and new for them.
Yeah. How is that education going for your clients? Like, are they receptive to it more now that they can like see the obvious consequence? Like if you don't take me up on this and schedule now, like you will wait 4 weeks to get in.
Yeah, no, it's definitely they're seeing it. I mean, my clients in the Bay Area, they are really on top of things and they like to schedule themselves. They're busy people. So I think it was just a shift of not so much like belief or anything, but just like it just changed. All of a sudden it got busy. Like several of them said that like, wow, your calendar's just booked out. Like I had to, plan ahead. I was like,
yeah. Well, and I just wonder too, like, the benefits that gives to your clients that they have to plan ahead like that for their health. And like, it's an up level for them too. It's an up level for your business, but it's actually like a really big investment that they're making like in their time and decisions ahead of time. It's like they can thank their past self when their future self is reaping the benefits of that appointment for making the appointment when they did and taking that time.
One shift I've had with packages, when I very first started doing it was the saving money aspect. And it's, slowly transitioned to like, this is in their benefit. But now my thinking on packages is it's really a commitment to investing in yourself. And that's how I love to think about it. And I think some of my best clients that are getting so much out of the work, they view it like that too. This is an investment. This is something I want to put on the calendar regular to take care of myself. Yeah. And some of them have more acute or chronic things. Some of them, I've got a couple of clients, they just really love the benefit and it's making their life better. So they want to stay on schedule, which is very cool.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to have a better life, right? Like who doesn't? And I think when you know that, like, that certain clients are coming specifically for that benefit, or they've said those words, being able to talk to other clients and the words that other clients have said to you is super beneficial. So for anyone listening, like start to listen to the words that your clients say and the reasons why they continue to come back, and use that language in how you sell MFR to the next person, right? Like it's so beneficial to have a better life. Like who doesn't want to buy that? Like, I'm offering you a better life. Like, did you want to buy this or not? Just like I'm like, I'm offering you an easier business where you make more money and you're stressed out less. Like, do you want to buy that or not? It's not that hard. But people freak out, and it's because they don't necessarily know what they're buying, or it's so uncomfortable to invest in yourself because most people don't practice doing it. They don't know what that means. It seems very risky. And it's like you're pouring something into yourself, right? Whether that's time, rest, nourishment, exercise, body work, education, coaching, whatever it is, like you're giving it to yourself. Like who better to give that to than yourself? So I think the more we normalize investing in ourselves on all of those different planes, like the better the world will be, because the happier people will be.
Mm-hmm. And they see the benefit. They get to contribute to their family more. They get to show up more. They get to work with, so many people work here all the time, and, they on Zoom all the time, or, and they're feeling better in their bodies. And the thing they came in for originally is kind of, evaporated, but, you're at the new levels of the healing, or, I get really excited when clients, the original thing has, I like to say evaporated. It's no longer the main issue, but then they're so aware of these other things that they'd been tuning out for years. And, I talk about it, like, it's fine if you leave it there, but it's also really cool if you want to start working through those things too. What if you don't have those issues?
What else can we evaporate? Yeah. I love that. So good.
And a lot of clients are pretty aware that come into my office. They're like, yeah, I've had this thing for like 20 years, or I've kind of always had this thing. They're not really in denial. And I love that open mindset. Like, this has been there for a while. This could take a while. I don't feel like I'm convincing too many people that this is not a quick fix. This is an investment.
Right. Well, and that speaks to how you are speaking to your audience, because the clients that come to you, like those are the clients you're selling to out in the world. Mm-hmm. Right? The good and the bad. And so like when you're finding that you really are attracting your best fit client, it's because of the work you're doing on the front end. And it's the work you're doing in your own mindset and how you speak about what it is that you do and who you accept as a client. So I want you to give yourself credit for that result, because it says a lot about how you're putting yourself out there and how you're presenting your business to the world.
And I put a lot of thought into it before. I had 4 months to think about all this before I could actually do it. And then after you're open, you kind of continually refine. You always say what's possible. And it's really true. Like, what is possible? And some of my clients, I didn't even know you could have clients that were that invested and open-minded and willing to do all of this. And I'm just blown away. I was like, I wish I was that client, 5-10 years ago.
Yeah. But you have become that client in like the aspect of, I would say you're a maximalist in the way that you used coaching for yourself, right? Like you were extremely committed to it. Okay. So you wrote down like your coaching, your biggest takeaways. So round one, and you mentioned this earlier, was that you were introduced to the concept of what is possible, and you kind of explored all of that and made modifications to what you already had set up. And then in round two, you began leveling up and embodying the concepts, living the concepts. And then you were deciding how to integrate all of the concepts regularly.
And I will say, like, I actually wasn't going to sign up for a second round of coaching. And I was definitely in that group that's like, no, I can do this on my own.
I got this. Yeah.
And I even listened to your podcast about how that's not super helpful. And I was like, whatever, I'm still going to try it.
Yeah, you're like, I'm fine.
I think totally I made it like a week or two, and I was like, oh, faltering. Like, I really like the community of that group. But I think that was the same point. You did a talk right before the end of that round on what if your life was a 2 and not a 10? And that just blew my mind. And I was like, because I had changed it so drastically already. But then I really took your question seriously. And I was like, what if it is a 2? Like, what would make it a 10? And the things that started coming into my awareness were really powerful and really fun. And I really wanted to make that happen. And part of it was going to be a rate change. And you had done the Raise Your Rate Bootcamp. And, I was pretty happy with my rate originally, but then you start realizing like, there's so much more either that I missed in the budget or things I didn't know when I opened. For me, it was a big one on the schedule. I didn't know how much I can handle. I had no idea. Yep. But that really, there was a huge desire to level up. And so I loved the coaching container for that. But I also really wanted to get to a place where when I did step out of coaching, I really owned the things that you had introduced us to. And I feel like I'm in that place now. Like, I think I'll still do more coaching rounds, and I really enjoy being in that community and just learning so much from everyone. But I feel like I'm in a much better place of making the things we've learned really routine, not routine in a bad way, but routine in a good way.
Like, it's just part of you. Like, it just becomes part of your makeup, like how you make the decisions. One of the things, like one of the concepts we talk about is taking radical responsibility for everything. Can you kind of tell people how that shows up in your practice and how it was before you learned that concept?
I think I was on board with that concept. I just didn't have it thoroughly, if that makes sense. I didn't live it thoroughly. And so one of the things that I hear you ask people on your podcast is, what surprised you most about the coaching? And one of the things that I was not expecting to learn was how your thoughts create reality. And I was introduced to the law of attraction when I was a teenager and The Secret when I was in 20. And I had this faith that those things really happened, but it was kind of like a blind faith. Like, oh, I'm sure they work, and I see it work in my life, but I didn't understand how. And so you break it down for us. Like, this is exactly how your thoughts create reality. And so to start living that is very cool, both for good and for bad, the things that show up. And I think I've got pretty thick skin from teaching middle school for 13 years that not a lot really bothers me.
You're a different breed at this point. Yeah.
Nothing bothers you. Can tell me anything and it's really not going to bother me too much. And so it was not hard. Like, I didn't get all bent out of shape if I realized I was doing this one thing to myself, because it's just information. And if you can use that information and just make changes, you're just going to keep getting closer and closer to where you want to be and refining that process. So I don't remember what your original question was, but.
Well, I was just saying, like, that concept of radical responsibility. And I think you broke it down by saying, it's like you learned, like, your thoughts create your results, your thoughts create your reality, and how, like, for good or bad, how that happens. And like being okay with both, kind of like both circumstances of good or bad.
Yeah. No, it's so helpful.
And knowing that you can change, just like I like to say this, which can't even remember where I heard this, but like, you're one thought away from everything that you want almost all the time, no matter what the circumstance is.
There was also something that it was like a little finesse of a concept you teach. And I think you are the one that said it originally, but it really stuck in my brain. We have the model and you have the intentional model, what you want to be thinking and the result you want to create, but you have the unintentional model. And there was a day where you called it the magic. There's magic in the unintentional model. So I just started calling it the magic model because I didn't really like the unintentional.
I love that. That's so good. I might have to start adopting that. Yeah.
Because you kind of don't want to admit you've got this other side of you that, either feels whatever it feels, like judgy or
ashamed or
any of the things. And you kind of don't really, you already know you want that to change, but you kind of delved into it. I don't remember who it was with, one of the other people in the group, about the magic is in there, because once you figure out that little glitch that's going on, then you're onto it and you can make different choices. And that was really helpful for me. And so I'll put a lot more time now into figuring out, like, okay, let's just be honest. Like, what are you really doing and thinking or feeling?
Yeah.
Because that's causing the thing that you don't want, And so it's really embracing that process, because it's going to get you where you want to go sooner if you just kind of nicely call yourself out.
Well, and this is the magic of coaching too, is, well, first of all, not everybody is coachable. And I think a lot of people come into the coaching container a little uncoachable. It shows up in like being very defensive when I offer suggestions and whatever. I've just learned that that's just happens for some people because I think it's just like societal. We're brought up to like defend ourselves. And if someone says we're doing something quote unquote wrong or whatever, like we get all bristly and we're like so ashamed that we could be doing something wrong. We'll just fall on the sword for the thing that we don't even want to be happening just to be right or whatever. So that's the opposite land of you. Like, you're very coachable. Like, I can say one or two things to you and you not only like take it as the concept on the surface area, but you dive into it and you're like, where is this showing up everywhere, and like really playing with it.
I just had an epiphany about where that's from. So that's from being a musician. And so when you're a musician, you take lessons, especially when you go through college and get a music degree, you're in lessons every week and it's not personal. You're playing it wrong, or you haven't done this musical thing or that musical thing.
Oh, I love that part where it's not personal.
Nothing's personal. It's like, oh, you need to do this with your fingers on the keys, or you need to breathe here differently, or let's actually redecide how we're playing that musical passage. You get that for an hour a week, like the majority of your life as a musician. And especially if you want to be in music school and get degrees in it, and you're always critiqued. Rehearsal is always fixing things. And so that's my mindset. Like, if you're just making it more towards what everybody wants it to be, including yourself.
Yeah, you're fine tuning it.
Yeah. So that's your life as a musician, is constructive criticism all the time. And you actually, in college, when you become a music teacher, one of the schools I applied to and interviewed at was really behavioral oriented, and they would videotape their students, because music is so much like this, that music directors can be so negative. You didn't do this right. You didn't do this right. You didn't do this right. Because you're always fixing notes or fixing whatever's.
But that's like your job, right? Is to catch all the mistakes.
That's your job. But how awful is that on the receiving end as a student or a performer in that group, to always hear what you're doing wrong? So you have to learn how to talk about it in a positive way.
Yeah.
And so when you've done so much receiving of that and then teaching and figuring out how it really is in their best interest to do this thing this other way, but you have to phrase it positively, or, and so, my whole life has been steeped in that. So this is fun to me to hear what I'm doing.
Well, I appreciate it, because makes my job very easy. And here's the thing, when we use these models, this concept that I teach, that I learned from Brooke Castillo by getting my certification at the life coach school, I always like to give credit back to where I learned that tool from. But when I can teach it to someone else and they can take it and not use it against themselves, you can take it and you can see the magic of it. That is when your life gets to start changing, because you get to have that control over how you show up in certain circumstances, no matter how terrible the circumstance is. And I also teach the other concept of life being 50-50. And you can be having a $10,000 month and maybe your mom also died, or maybe you got in a bad car accident and you have a huge deductible due, you're not even going to get to see that money. But you can, at the same time of having something really good and something bad happening, you get to decide how you experience those things. Right?
I found that really helpful, because I think there is so much of our society, whether it's social media now or wherever, you just always hear the good. And I feel very blessed. My friends and my community, we do have real talks a lot. So you really know that things are not as great as they seem all the time. But I think you're still conditioned by society to just, the goal is to always be happy.
Be positive,
the goal is, to always have things work out. And it really doesn't. And that was very freeing when you said that, even if you've achieved your goals and you're headed in the direction you want to go, things are still a mix.
Yeah, it's still going to be 50-50. And if you wait to feel good about your business, say you can't feel good about it till you hit 100K, it is going to be the most miserable journey. Why even bother? So it's the journey to get there is going to suck so much if you can't celebrate all of the little things and kind of laugh at yourself while you're learning, while you're evaluating things and being oh, I could do this differently next time or whatever. I just love all those tools to be able to not make fun of myself, but to see the humanness in everything that I do. And also the humanness in all of the things that I'm avoiding doing because it's uncomfortable.
And just have more joy through all of it. You don't need to be miserable, even if it's sometimes you have these great big light bulb moments and you're like, oh my God, I'm doing this thing that comes from this other part of my life. Why am I doing that? But, move on and make a change. There's a joy in deciding you don't want that anymore, and you're going to take steps to go in a different direction.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about this. So some of the other things were your belief in yourself, your clients, and MFR. And one of your thoughts was, I can help you. MFR can help you. How have you used that to increase your business and sales? So some of the things you wrote down was you continually revisit rebooking, selling and service, packages, objections,
These are all different concepts for me. So when I started my business, I didn't even realize you could rebook someone to come back. I don't even think I offered to rebook anyone for the first month, which is probably why I had to drop off.
I don't think it's natural. I don't think nobody says this is how you get your business fully booked. You literally take the clients you have and you keep rebooking them until you have new clients.
Right. And that was a major light bulb moment for me because I'd never done it. But I think, with the first thing I wrote, that I can help you, MFR can help you. I was that client that was so frustrated and probably depressed and, all the things that you're not yourself. I was a big yoga person and I was very active and played all this, music all the time. And I couldn't play flute. I couldn't conduct. I couldn't do my yoga class. It was so I couldn't carry the groceries, So it was very eye-opening to be the client. I mean, I didn't know what being a therapist was at that point, but and so you really do, you are searching for something that will just help. And so when I see people in that space, like sometimes I get emotional, because I remember what that was like.
Yeah.
And they are at the bottom, and nothing's working and they can't, help their kids, or they can't show up in the ways that they want to. And so it's very cool to have been a client and know that this helps, especially those people that nothing else has helped. But I think people crave genuine, caring human beings on the other side of the process. And they're not used to that. And I was not used to that. You go to PT and you go to the whoever. I mean, I had a great PT person, but
but it's still so prescriptive and what do you think? What is your insurance going to cover?
Yeah. And it's how often does someone like I've had clients tell me after that first session, no one listens to me. You listened and you asked questions, and that makes such an impact with them. But then to look them in the eyes and be like, I can help you and I want to help you. Yeah. Sometimes they've never heard that from anyone, anywhere that they're going. And that it makes me so sad, but it makes me so excited for what we do as MFR therapists.
Yeah, it's so good. We restore hope in people that have lost it.
And that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And I think sometimes we forget in the busyness of running a business and treating and doing all the techniques, it's be a human being.
Well, and I think we become desensitized to it in a way because this is just what we do all day. It's, if you aren't continually remembering how almost bizarre it is what we do and the benefits that we create, the results that we create with our clients, it's out of this world compared to anything else and hard to explain sometimes, but we've got to remember to stay in that magic and remember we're restoring hope, and hope is a priceless feeling to have in your body. When you have hope, you're unstoppable. If you have that taken away from you, it sucks.
Yeah. And I don't know what all areas of the country are like, but the Bay Area is busy and people are stressed and people are overscheduled. And to just have a time and space to just come in and just be and just not have to have the game face on for work or your family, or you can just come in and just take care of yourself is really powerful for people.
Yeah, it's so good. Okay, so this is a really fun thing that Kristin did. She actually fact-checked some of the things that I talk about. So I just love this. I just love it. So she went through and she really broke this data down. So she had packages and where her clients came from. So do you want to kind of talk about that data you have written down and how you figured all that stuff out?
Yeah. So, and it says a lot about you as a coach that you're not, threatened by that. And
no,
I sent you the data
this
after
is
I'd been open for 6 months. I was like, I'll bet she's interested in this. And she seems like a person that's not going to get her feathers all ruffled.
No, I didn't even know this was possible to fact check. It never even occurred to me.
Yeah. This is a hangover from public school for sure.
Perfect. Great. Let's do it.
So you had one thing you say a lot on your podcast, at least on the early ones, was you are your best referral source. And I had, different mentors who are wonderful kind of tell me how their referrals worked and that sort of thing. And I was like, is that really true? I don't know, where are all my clients coming from? And also just an investment of energy. I want to keep doing the things that work, and the things that don't work, I'll stop doing them. So at 6 months, I kind of went back and analyzed all my clients. And so it broke down to 38% came from online, which was Google or search or Yelp, whatever. Or the MFR directory was great too. And then they listed me specifically as 45%. I think that's higher because I was going through my network and my community, but some strangers, that I met and talked to at events would come in.
Yeah. Well, also your online presence is as good as you doing it too. You're not paying for ads, it's organic based on how you set it up.
Exactly. And then referrals were 17% at that point. But I was like, well, to your point, I've created all of my online resources. So that's kind of me, and
it's you.
me directly. Yeah. So the overwhelming majority of my clients were generated by myself, which was great. Yeah. And it was a very small amount were referrals. So fact check, true. You are your best referral source.
I love it. She has like true all in capitals next to that quote.
And then I was really curious, and I've actually been kind of surprised that I haven't heard people talking about this as much. And I think people get frustrated by it once they get into their rate and offering packages or not. And my question was like, well, my clients are going to be a blend of some people paying full price sessions and doing one-offs or a couple. And then some are going to be packages. And what's that ratio? Because that drastically impacts your end of year revenue and how much you're bringing in. And I was like, what's that number? Like that, I need to kind of know that to set it.
That's why it's really important that your rate makes sense. And it also like maths out mathematically.
Yes. Yeah. So I kind of got really nerdy at some point.
Love it.
And then I started analyzing. And so for me, with my clients, it hovers around 25% pay full price sessions, and then 75% are packages. Right. And so it'll be interesting over the next year or two to see if that holds or not. Mm-hmm. But that turns it into, I mean, it's a little more complicated math, but you figure it out and you can base your end of your revenue off of how much, 75% of it being package rate and then 25% being full price. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing, I don't know if this applies to everyone out there, but California has really high taxes, and that has to be planned for. It probably has to be planned for everywhere, but especially in states with really high tax rates.
Yep.
And so it's not an issue. I'm glad that, our state provides the things that it does, but I need to still make sure I'm making enough after taxes. And so you had a great guest speaker on that I went back and watched. So I really, I wanted to make, my budget as accurate as possible, and how much I was coming away with at the end as accurate as possible.
Yeah. Do you want to tell them about like your projections for this year?
Sure. So since I opened, it's been 10 months now. Well, I'll say for 2022, you always like to ask people. So I made just under 52,000 in 2022, opening in May. So that's 8 months. And then if I add on January and February this year, so my 10-month total is at just under 65,000,
that's crazy for your first year in business, like your first 10 months in business.
It's so crazy. It's awesome. I just love it.
So cool.
So my projection, if I continue on with that, I'll make my first year in business a little under 80,000, which is very cool. But I live in the Bay Area, so that is not the goal. The goal is much higher than that.
Yep.
So 2023, I'd like to be over 100,000, and I think it's very doable. And then my 2024 goal, you had a day where you really broke down budgets. And, when I hear budget, I think like needs. That's how my brain worked originally. Like, what do I need to make?
Yep.
And then I was like, well, there's some wants, so my first rate had my needs plus a few of the wants, and I was coming off a year of not really working much. So kind of locked down finances for a year.
Yeah.
But then you were like, well, why shouldn't you have your wants? And then your dreams, what are you building towards, in 5 or 10 years? And, like, let's look at your whole life. Like you didn't say, I kind of projected some of that out from what your talk was. But I came from a field where we had a pension and we had health benefits and we got raises every year. And, all of that's in there. And teachers do make a bit of money. I mean, they don't make as much as tech, but they make more than a lot of other industries. And so I was like, well, if you start adding in all of those things, and then we love to travel, we love to go to sports games and concerts. And, and it's like, I'm probably like telling so much about your program, but you've also asked us like, what are your fears and what are your concerns? And so somebody was like, what if we have another pandemic and can't work, for 6 months? Like we're told we can't work, or what if I break my arm, or what if what if this or that, and so it's like, that's a thing in the back of my mind. And you're like, well, what can you do to erase that and create safety for yourself? I'm like, oh, like, let's just build out the budget for the what ifs. And then I know they're taken care of. And what a better way that falls into the category of, what if your life was a 10? If my life was a 10, I would know that everything was taken care of.
Oh, you're like, this is one aspect that makes it a 10, knowing that I have really good insurance coverage, or like the supreme coverage of this or that.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even like, I don't need a life of luxury and extravagance, but I love
But you also
knowing
can
that
if you
things
want.
I know my brain's starting to open to that, but it's not there yet.
That's definitely something a concept I introduced to you guys of like, so many people, I think this is just like a human condition, like are okay with having just enough. And it's like, but what if you had luxurious amounts of time, luxurious amounts of money, like luxurious support in your life? What would even be your life if you had that? And we don't entertain it.
Yeah, my brain has not leveled up to that. We could do that someday in the future once I level up to that. It's more like, wow, I don't have to work 90 hours a week and I actually have a weekend off. Like these are new concepts for me from being a teacher. Like you work all the time as a teacher and like this is luxurious my life right now compared to before.
Yeah. But that's so good because some people would have that change in hours and they would think something is wrong. That's another thing, we coach on. It's like, it's safe for you to have white space in your calendar. It's safe. I think this maybe applies more to like PTs that are coming from corporate. It's like, it's safe for you to not see 40 patients in a week. That's safe. You can see 10 if you wanted, like, depending on your rate. There's a way to make that math out. People are like, what?
Yes. New realities.
So dangerous. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I really appreciate that you shared this spreadsheet with me and all of the things that you've learned. I'm going to kind of the stuff in the right-hand column are all of the things you've learned how to do, right?
It was interesting when I was first going through my notebooks from the 2 coaching sessions, I was kind of just like listing everything. And I was like, they kind of all fall into 2 categories and they're all related. There's all the stuff that's going on in your brain, how you think, how you perceive, how you decide. But then there's the action items. And I love that you teach both because not all programs and coaches do, and it's like, yes, you could do all the thinking, but you'd have no action. And yes, you can do all the action, but if it's not thoughtful and mindful, you're not going to go where you want. And you blend the 2 so well. So in answer to your question, like the left-hand column is the thought stuff. And then the right-hand column is all the actions that kind of go with it.
Under authority and evaluation. So that's like kind of the brain work. And then from that, you also learned how to make decisions quickly, see how you created the results in the clients, tweak actions, what worked or didn't, stay on top of your brain, create policies, enforce policies. And I love this, like, how would fully booked Kristin handle this? How would 100K Kristin handle this? Those are the questions you learned to ask yourself. And then under other business topics, there was modules, guest speakers. We had stuff where we learned SEO, taxes, copywriting, how to speak to clients in your written word. And then messaging, tell everyone you're an MFR therapist, use social media, learning from others, anticipate what's coming so you can plan for it, your biggest month, lower month, managing the schedule, packages, cancellations. Business isn't linear. That was good for lots of people. And it was just something that like I just said one day, I was like, you guys, business isn't linear, just like healing. And people are like, what is happening right now? The concept of the river of misery versus having rainbow BO. Yep. That's a big one. Ways to say things, the perspectives. It might take 6 weeks or 6 months and adjust and own your process. I love that. And then goals. If life is a 2, do you feel amazing at the end of your day or week? And I think those are such good questions to constantly ask yourself because that's going to change over time.
Those are the 2 that just blew my mind because teachers don't, like, you just know when you sign up for the field, you're not going to feel great and you're going to be overworked and you're going to be underpaid and you're going to all these things.
Do you think people really say that to themselves though? Like,
we get told that in school. I mean, you get told by
like, you must be thinking like, but not me. Like, I'm going to be different.
Yeah, when you're like your first year teacher and then that evaporates about the first, second day of school. You're like,
so sad. I always wanted to be a teacher when I'm living my best teacher lifestyle now, like having this board behind me and a big marker.
Yeah, you are. No, it's really, and I even think I had professors in music school that were amazing teachers that almost try to talk you out of it because it's so hard and so demanding that if you don't just love it, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
So no, that it never even enters your consciousness to be like, oh, what if I felt amazing? Like that's not in the reality. So that's been so fun to think about. Like,
I wonder, like your decision-making process, like if you went back and you became a teacher now with like, how to do mind management, like, you just know how to operate differently.
I think it would be improved, but I wouldn't put it in there's just too much. You just have I had 350 students. And when I taught high school, I had 60 events.
But you'd probably say no more. Like you'd know how to say no more.
Yeah, but sometimes you can't say no. I think that's partly why I left the educational system, is because there was no way to make the two compatible.
Got it.
Schools
compatible with life.
Yeah, schools have changed. And I'm also not a person that can just turn a blind eye or just not do the thing, And so I really care and I really like to meet expectation. Yeah. And there's just too much placed on teachers now and on schools. They're doing the job of communities and families.
Yeah.
Also,
it's crazy.
And I a special place in my heart for all of the teachers. Several of them come and see me and I was like, I'll fit you in anytime because I believe in what you're doing so much.
Yeah. I love that so much. Okay. I'm just going to go over these last few things under your goals. So we said goals. What if life is a 2? Do you feel amazing at the end of your day and week? And you learned how to manifest goals. You've learned the concept of the lag between the thought work and it showing up in your actual business, how to touch your facts. The quicker you let go of things that don't fit, the quicker new results show up. So good. And then always be revising your goals, your schedule, your budget, and create safety for the things you worry about, celebrate your goals, and live your best life. That gives me goosebumps.
It does. So and you're making that happen for so many people, Heather.
You're gonna make me cry.
And it's just so exponential. That you help us and then we help other people. It's like you're changing the world, and you're helping us change the world. And, it's just our community and our people that we get to work with, but that times all the MFR therapists everywhere is doing such good for society and people in need. It's wonderful.
Well, I love it so much. I love being like a little piece of that ripple effect that we have out.
You're the pebble that's creating the ripple.
I'll be the ploop. I'm the ploop. So funny. All right. Is there anything else you would want to tell people about your experience or about coaching? Like, what would you say to people that are you back in the beginning of last year when you were just listening to the podcast? Like, you're on the podcast now. Like, did you ever think that would happen?
No, never even. And then when you tried to get me to do it earlier, I didn't want to do it.
I was like, Kristin, not me. What's happening? Like, let's just talk. And you're like, nope, not ready.
Not ready. It's not me. I'm not there yet. I still don't feel there yet.
So funny.
I think, me back then, it's like, yes, you're going to make your money back. Yes, everything in the group is going to help you and affect you. Even if you've already done the thing that's being talked about, it's all helpful. And then I think something you said once is really helpful too, that it's not that we couldn't do and learn these things on our own. It's just that it compresses the time.
Yeah.
So it could take you 10 years to work through all these things, or you could go all in, double down and do it so much faster. And you just get through all the painful parts faster. You get through all the growth faster, and you get to be living what you want to be living so much sooner.
Yeah. And you get to you just collapse time for how long it takes you to have a $10,000 a month. And then once you learn how to do that, you can do it over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Whenever you want. Cool. You know how to make money.
So the answer is yes. If you're thinking about doing it, you should totally do it.
You should do it. Come on and join us. Yes. Okay. Well, I'm very proud of you. I love being your coach. You're so coachable. And I think too, this is inspirational. These results are very inspirational. And also lots of people are able to do this. So it's not unattainable. And when you were thinking my goal is to create a $10,000 a month and it seems so far away, did you still believe it was possible for you? Or did you think that it was less people were doing that than were swimming in the river of misery and not making that kind of money?
No, it's totally possible. I just thought it was going to take a lot longer. Yeah, because I can see the math of it, and the people are going to come in. I also live in a very populated area, and everyone I know is injured. I mean, I don't know if that's from being a musician also, but everyone's in pain everywhere. They just hide it really well, So it's there's no shortage of clients. So it's literally just a matter of time.
I love those thoughts. There's no shortage of clients. These are thoughts that everybody listening can borrow. There's no shortage of clients, no matter where you live. You don't have to live in San Francisco in order to have that thought. I live in a one stoplight town. My business has been closed for years because I've been the MFR coach now for over 2 years. What is happening? I get calls weekly still from people trying to get in with me. They are looking someone needs to move to this area and take over my old business. You will be rich. But there's enough people everywhere. And like you said, there are people in pain anywhere and everywhere. You just don't always know. So always be offering to help people because
and if
your
for some
neighbor.
reason they think they're not, they know someone who is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, keep going. I will love when you decide to come back, but I'll be in touch. We do alumni coaching. And so like everybody who has ever coached with me, like once you become an alumni, like I do offer free coaching every so often. And we just get together and we all coach for like an hour or two, however much free time I have. And we catch up and check in and see how everybody's doing. And it's fun. So,
I can't wait.
Yeah. Tell everybody how they can find you.
Pacific Myofascial Release. My website is pacificmfr.com. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I will probably never have a podcast. That's fine.
Never say never.
All of you who do, because I love consuming them. But yeah, just Pacific Myofascial Release. And I'd love to hear from people. I've actually reached out to some of the people that did podcasts with you before, and it's fun to kind of chit chat. And, I'm a big community oriented person. And I love that I have friends now all around the country that are MFR therapists. And it's great.
That's so cool. Okay. And if anyone's curious, you can always hop over to my website, themfrcoach.com, and click on the Therapist Network tab. And then you can see Kristin right there. She's got her beautiful pictures on there and a link to her website if you want easy access and you don't remember her URL for some reason. So go follow her over on Instagram, and we'll probably have to have you back as a follow-up guest in 6 months to a year and see how you're doing.
I'm sure I will get nervous.
I will seek you out. That's right. We'll get sweaty together. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And I'll be back next week with another episode. See y'all later. Bye. Thanks for joining me today. My goal is to help all MFR therapists stop under-earning and burning out. I have several resources available for you. Read my book, The MFR Coach's Guide to Having Your Own MFR Business, available on Amazon and at Advanced John Barnes MFR seminars. Keep listening to the podcast. I'll always have fresh content each and every week. Join my group coaching program. Enrollment opens 4 times per year. We take all the information I teach and lay down the foundation for your 6-figure MFR business. It's more than just raising rates, but you'll make that the hardest part. Then expand into the business owner who delivers your rate like it's just the news and who can sell MFR to anyone in any situation. I'll show you how. Get on my email list, follow me on social media at the MFR Coach, and visit my website for more information on group enrollment, themfrcoach.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.